Do you sometimes feel like there's nothing you can do in your games, and you just slowly keep getting starved out of your camps, objectives, and vision? But other times you steamroll the enemy with no effort? This used to happen to me too, and I could not for the love of me figure out what I was doing wrong. I would watch back my replays, pay for coaches, and grind for hours, but my rank just wouldn't change, until I learned about jungle tracking. Me, Jared, from League Mentor's content team, got from E4 0 LP to Diamond 2 in about 2 weeks, while winning 80% of my games only thanks to jungle tracking. And even though I am a jungle main, I personally believe it's the most useful concept to learn for every role, and I guarantee you that you will know how to do it by the end of this video. From my experience, I believe the reason the games were so inconsistent and making my account swing from win streaks to losers queue was because I was using the same formula for every game. What do I mean by this? Imagine you're a Kayle player and you're really good on her, but you struggle into a champ like Warwick. Every single time you play against him, you lose, and because of that, you go on win streaks when you play against random champs and feel powerless when you face Warwick. So even though you are a really good player, using the same formula for victory results in there almost being like some kind of a barrier that is preventing you from progressing further. Coupled with the fact that in higher elos, people are picking Warwick against you more often too. This will leave you and me pulling on the band-aid, trying to stretch it as far as possible to get that new peak, but of course falling right back down once it inevitably retracts. This was literally my day-to-day life, except the problem wasn't picking Kayle into Warwick, it was using a formula like full clearing into Dragon every single game. I thought I had bad decision making, but no. In replays I could clearly tell when I was screwing up. I just didn't have enough info about what was happening in the game around me and behind Fog of War to choose the right decisions, so I just did full clear into Dragon every game. But once I learned the jungle tracking, I knew exactly what the enemy jungler was doing at all times, I could anticipate what he was going to do and pick up free kills during invades, and when I was playing lane, I could see that I was gonna get ganked before there even was a chance I get ganked. Okay, so there are levels to jungle tracking, and let's start with level 1. The current meta dictates that junglers start on their buff. In the past, some champs had to start blue or red for optimal clears, but nowadays it really doesn't matter since your jungle pet is doing most of the damage. So we need to check for leashes. Right after the buff spawns, look at top and bot lane and see who shows up first. The lane that actually shows up later is the one usually leashing, and they could be also missing mana from using abilities when leashing, so look at them using your camera. One little tip I should add onto this is, in low elo, the enemy jungler almost always starts bot side. This, by the way, shows also how little thought they put into their play, but it's alright because they don't know any better. Anyways, by knowing where the enemy jungler starts, you can already predict a lot of info about where they're gonna be for the next few minutes. If the enemy jungler is a full clearing champ like Hecarim or Udyr, you can expect them to full clear. If it is a strong fighter that needs all 3 of their abilities like Elise or Lee Sin, they might go for 3 camps into gank, and Nunu, Jarvan or Shaco might go for level 2 gank, so watch out for those. But if you want to go one step further to know more precisely where the enemy jungler is, look at yourself. Thanks to the new jungle pet, all junglers clear at pretty much the same rate. That means if you are on your 3rd camp, there is a good chance that the enemy is also gonna be doing his 3rd camp. This trick also works basically forever until the enemy jungler gets desynced to you. Anyways, with this info alone, you can already construct your winning plan. Let's say you are Xin Zhao and you are pathing top, and you see the enemy Echo is also pathing top. You can pretty easily predict that you will be on Scuttle at a similar time, and as Xin, you should definitely try to fight there and get a lead. Echo, on the other hand, wants the complete opposite. Seeing that Xin is pathing top should make him want to recall right after Krugs and go to bot Scuttle to avoid the fight. But Xin with the right lane matchups can actually just invade Echo on his red. You see how much we're already predicting and theorizing? Anyways, that was a specific game example. Let's look at something more common. You're on your 3rd camp doing your first clear and you see that your mid is really overextended and on low health. You know that the enemy jungler is also on his 3rd camp thanks to the previous rule. So we should try to counter, right? Yes, but to not screw up your first clear in case he won't gank, you should just go to your wolves through mid lane like this, so you don't waste too much time. And if he does decide to show up, Great, you hopefully get an easy counter. Choosing even the first clear path is a broad topic for another video, so let's stick to jungle tracking and the last point for level 1, which is jungle respawn timers. In case you didn't know, the small jungle camps respawn in 2 minutes and 15 seconds, and the buffs in 5 minutes. Knowing these respawn times lets you create a mental note when you're, for example, invading, so you can know exactly when the camp you just took is gonna respawn. You just add together the time of you taking the camp, and then 2:15 or 5 minutes. And the time you get is literally the exact moment when the camp respawns, which is really useful when invading, because League's automatic timers don't show you the precise respawn time, and in invades, those few seconds that you might overstay because of the little yellow hourglass might lose you the game. But that's not all. Based on this information and their first clear, we can actually predict the entire second camp rotation. It's logical. The camps they did on their first clear will respawn in the same order that they did them in. So if they did a full clear like this, the camps will respawn in the same order, just like so. And also, here's a cool side note. What most pro junglers do in those quiet scaling games is skip the blue buff in favor of Gromp, so that when the camps respawn, they don't have that awkward pause between Wolves and Gromp on second camp rotation, and they can just clear all the time. I would actually suggest you to do this if you're in low elo and play farming junglers almost every game. Anyways, that was pretty much it for level 1. Let's move on to level 2 and how to track the enemy jungler even if their clear gets desynced. You might have noticed that Faker and other pros spam the tab key a lot, like a lot. This is not an accident or a bad habit, because you can actually find out a lot of information about the enemy with just the scoreboard. The obvious one is their items. You can tell when a person has backed if they have new items. Duh. But you can also see what camps they did. How's that? Well, once again, before we dive any deeper, we need to learn some info about the game. Every jungle camp, even the buffs and Scuttle Crab, give the player 4 CS. And these days, the only clears that people do are full clear, which gives you 24 CS, and is the only clear that grants you level 4, and the 3 camp, which gives you 12 CS and easy access to ganks, and of course level 3. Just like that, we can do some easy calculations. For example, if we see the enemy in Scuttle with level 3 and 20 CS, we can be pretty certain he skipped the camp, because 4 times 5 equals 20. And a full clear gives you 24 CS and level 4, like I've just said. But what if he shows mid lane with 24 CS and he's still level 3? Well, in that case, he most likely skipped the camp and took Scuttle, which is why he's still level 3. But okay, that was easy. Let's say that the enemy jungler has 33 CS after ganking bot, and then he shows mid and has 45 CS. What camps did he probably do? Well, most likely, Gromp, Wolves, Raptors, because 4 CS times 3 is 12, and 33 plus 12 equals 45 CS. It's just basic arithmetic. The hard part is properly executing it. You need to get into a habit of spamming tab every time the enemy jungler reveals himself on the map, and make a mental note of his new CS and do some calculations. Not looking during fights is fine, but every other time you should know. On level 3, we start literally left clicking on the enemy jungler and looking at the buffs they have. This will be really technical, but I will try to explain it as simply as I can. A player that did some kind of a first clear that includes both buffs will have both of the cooldowns on his champion as a literal buff. And we can see the duration of these buffs if we left click their champ. And from these buffs, we can calculate which camps they skipped. How? When a champion takes blue and keeps on clearing, the blue buff is of course ticking down, and the ratio on the red buff and blue buff will be almost the same every clear. But if we skip a camp, the duration shifts depending on which camp we skipped. And so, when we find out the enemy's buff cooldowns, we can in theory predict which camp they skipped based on the time shift. Still confused? Here's the simplest example of someone skipping Krugs. In this replay, they take red and then they start walking. But look at the red buff duration. It's super fresh, like he walked right away from red, which is exactly what he did. It's not that common to use this strategy in game, but when I do, I literally feel like L from Death Note. Anyways, to thank you for watching this video so far, here's a bonus level that script makers literally put into their cheats, and it uses a technique policemen and detectives use to find lost planes or people. Basically, if your grandpa with Alzheimer's disappeared, you wouldn't be taking a plane ticket to China to look for him there, right? You would look at the last place that he was at, and then based on the time and his move speed, you would map out a circular area in which he could theoretically be. and in that circle, you would look for places he is most likely at. The same concept applies to League. If you see the enemy jungler back off from a top gank, you will not think that he's on your Krugs. You will mentally map out a circle in your head based on how long he has been missing and check for hotspots, like your overextended mid laner. And that's about it. We understand that this is a lot of info we dumped on you, so feel free to refer back to this video during your League improvement journey. The main habit you should take away from this video though is always freaking out and looking at the enemy jungler every time he shows up on the map. Make note of the CS, level and his position and ping for your team. And of course, thank you for watching.